Thank you, darling. Right, so we're going to proceed. Now, if you remember, this one, because it's got quite a firm edge, I've put a single wash on it as the base colour, and now I'm going to make the form, not the decorative detail, just the form. If you remember Hazel's famous dictum, form before decoration. She doesn't use decoration, she says something else, but anyway, not to worry. Okay, so I'm going to take some more yellow ochre. Kill it just a bit with a brown that's there. And I'm going to put this area here in and this bit here. So we've got this edge here. Now, it's not quite a straight edge. So if you tackle it, you know, don't swipe the line down. Try to allow the slightly bitten edge that they've got, and there's also a bit down here. Pretend you've got an old man's hand and let it shake. And this area here is also dark. Goes like that somehow. But presumably it does the same here before it comes back. And there's also this area around here where this stone is throwing a shadow. So we start thin and we thicken it up. There we are. And I would assume that this area here is also dark. Now that can be made darker still, because it is actually darker. I think I'm going to put a bit of blue in there. Ultramarine blue with a bit of this brown, just to kill the excitement a bit. This part here. And down here. This bit I've made up, but you can't see it properly. And this will also be very dark here, so we might as well start making it dark. But this is less so, so I'll leave that now to dry before I put the decorative detail on. Now the next one to look at is this one here. Now if you remember last week I put some wax on it. The wax is still there, which is rather nice. So I'm going to make a very pale, well, red actually. I suppose pale red is pink, or even peachy colour. And just paint it over the whole of this rock here. Now you can see where the red's going over the blue, it's looking like a darker red. Where it goes over the wax, it beads off nicely. You can see where it's been going. There we are. So it's got some kind of figuring on it there. And I think while it's still damp, I'm going to take the blue and put in some of these marks that are here. And you can see where the wax is, even this paint isn't clinging. We've got some marks down here. There's the blue. There we are. Some of these marks are quite strong. There's a dark shadow there. By making the paint thicker, it's not running quite so far. It ran a bit far last time I put it in, about 2 minutes ago. I don't want it to do that. I want it to stay. So I'm using thicker paint. It's over here. And I think I can darken this too here. This is darker. And in fact, if I take this shadow into this shadow, now I'm going to run a clean, damp brush over the edge here, because it's just a little bit solid. And I'm going to push it back so that it doesn't have a solid edge. It has a sort of what's the word I want? It fades, it bleeds one color into the other. Now, while I've got this color on, I add a bit of brown to it, make it darker. I can throw this shadow, where you've got to be a bit careful, and throw this shadow into and again a damp brush run at the edges, just to dampen the edge a bit so that it blends rather than goes into a firm line. That's a firm line there. This is where it's blending and running. That needs to run a bit more there. There we are, that's a bit better. This could be darker. No, that's better. That's quite a strong shape there. Then I'll go to this one. Now this one's got a sharp lump out of it. It's a piece of slate. And I used Prussian blue for that. And I'm twisting the brush. I don't know if you can see it. I'm twisting the brush in the paint to collect as much paint as I can on the brush. It's going to make quite a dark mark, as you see. Now, I start, you see, about here, and push the brush up to make the edge. Take it over here and pull that paint down. It's still not dark enough, so I'm going to just add a touch of water to loosen it up a bit. Twist in more paint and put it where I want it to go, because it seems to dip in there quite a lot. And a little bit there. This is very dark here. And then of course across the bottom edge here. Right, looks a bit better. I think I could have taken that a bit darker, but I'm not going to play with it at the moment because I want that edge to be nicely firm there. Now, while I've got the paint on the brush, I'm just going to use another brush to just put some water on this one here. Not really enough water on that. However, all the penalties, isn't it? I'll just leave it and come back to it when I'm better placed. Now this one here, well, I'm going to see if I can find a purple. That could be purple. No, that's not purple. Not the purple. That's it. Right, now, if I take some of the, I think that must be ultramarine violet, and I add to it some of this brown, which I think is an umber. I get a sort of rather nice colour, and I'm just going to put it on here because there's a sort of warmth about the shadows on the stone. Now, if I dry my brush off and take it up there, that off. Right, and I forgot to do this stone when I was last going around the houses, so I better put a bit of shadow on it somewhere. I think it's coming round here. Right, now that's dry over there. So I'm going to put in the striations now. And I'm using a flat brush. It holds less water. And this is a very square surface, so it's going to work quite nicely, I think. So I'll take some of the ultramarine. And I add a bit of that brown, which I've now turned terrible colour to it. That's nice. Now, just let's practice here. It's too wet. I need to take water out of the brush. Just squeezing near the ferrule, not the ferrule, whatever it's called. Try again. Right, I'll try. That's better. Right, so I'm just going to whisk it down. And then where there's a cross piece, as there is in places, I'm just going to whisk it down again. There's a sort of cross piece there. And this also has that sort of feel about it. So I'm going to use the paler colour that the undercoat there, just to put in a few marks on this surface. I think I could use that very dark colour that I created there to go into this quite solid shape. This area here run a bit, so I'm going to redefine it, make it darker. A dry brush over that, so it is. Now, if you want your rocks to really stand out one from another, you have to make the shape between them very, very much darker than the rest of it. So you want quite thick paint. Well, let's see how dark we can get it. Dark out here. It's really dark. This area around here is really dark too. Needs to be darker. Just a little thin line there. Now that's not terribly dark there, so we can leave that bit. But down here is a nice dark area. If you get the shape right, it helps to define the rocks underneath. Now again, we can needs to be darker, a lot darker. Oops. Now, if we where are we? Oh yes, this shape here goes up there. This one here is really dark around here. It's a really dark piece here. And this one here not really dark enough, needs to be darker, needs to be darker. We can do that. The darker you can get these interstices, the better, because they thrust the pebbles further forward so that they sort of leap out of the page at you, which is always exciting. Who would have thought you could have had so much fun with a few pebbles? See how just putting in that little bit of dark, how it's really pushing the pebbles off the page and making them much more three-dimensional than they are at the moment. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. There we are. It's what happens when you do things that you shouldn't.
10 minutes.
Oh, gosh, I nearly shut up.
Sorry.
You're right over my ear.
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. And it's been so quiet.
Yes.
There we are.
Everyone here has virtuously muted themselves or been muted.
No, well, that makes a difference. Now, I'm not 100% happy with these marks here. I think they're a bit strong. I'm just going to wet them. I allowed them to dry totally before I did this. Don't do it when it's half and half, because otherwise you'll end up in Agony City, to quote a certain gentleman. Right. Look, I'll take that dark and put it here. Pushes that, push pull. And here, don't have to go around them all. Look and see where you're getting the biggest shadows. This shadow here, it's got more shape to it that way. And of course, I've got a hard edge, which I don't want, so I put a dry brush on, a wet brush, beg your pardon. Damp, not wet. You don't want to flood the thing, just enough to give it a bit of water to move into. This is looking a bit sad, isn't it? It's not very exciting. Let's see what we can do with it. It goes a lot darker here. Take some of the dark. Like that. It's not dark. Again, that edge is very strong and I don't like it. And it's got a hard edge to it. So I'm taking a little scrubbing brush. I'm just taking it away. I don't want it strong there. This is a little hogshead brush that I use to scrub out my mistakes. I want quite a firm edge there. So I'll just jiggle that down a bit. Keep it there. And I think this ought to be a little bit stronger here. Again, I've got a firm edge that I don't like. I'm just going to worry it a bit. It's better. Him to come. Oh, life like that. Join in the circus, that one. I think that's okay. It's got a sort of dark splotch there. Right. And there's a very, very faint shadow on the bottom of this stone, very faint. So I'll put a little bit of water down. I'm just introducing some paint into it so that it can show up. That actually lighter. Yeah. Right, there we are. You can carry on twiddling for as long as you find the thing exciting to do. Some of these, for instance, could do with more definite marks. This down here.
Four minutes.
Right. So, as I say, you can see the idea. You just carry on working for as long as you're happy carrying on working, because that way around you become more and more involved in what the actual stones are doing. The importance of the lesson was actually water control, how much water you need to create a nice blended edge, what you need to do to the edge to keep it as a blend rather than as a sharp edge. Where do the sharp edges give you the clear-cut breaks that you want, and where you use the softer edges to create the rounder shapes. So that's the purpose of the lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed doing your pebbles, and that you might even go out and find some more pebbles to do off your own bat, which would be nice. Thank you, everybody.